let's move down south a little bit. Let's go to Texas. They finished the season 10-3. They missed the CFP this year. They won their regular season finale against, Texas A&M, and they won their bowl game against Michigan. So that's kind of how the season ended for the Longhorns. One stat that really surprised me, and it's an area of a concern. Penalties. They had 8.3 penalties per game this year, and so that'll definitely hit their coaching grade a bit. Actually, it probably should hit a little bit more than we gave them credit for, but we'll get to that in a little bit. Expected record versus actual record. Look, these guys started the season preseason number 1. Their expectation was to win 10.5, so basically 11 games, and they didn't. Right, their actual record was 10-3, so very close, but. While a 10-win season in the SEC is, objectively great, the B plus is the fact that, again, they were number 1 coming in. They missed the playoffs, but they got a little bump for finishing strong and, beating another big brand like Michigan in the Citrus Bowl to eventually get to that double-digit win season. But for a lot of Longhorn fans, considering who they have on their roster and what the outlook was looking like defensively and Arch Manning and all that hoopla, B plus will get you a degree, but it wasn't good enough for Longhorn fans.
Yeah, exactly. Um, Moving on to coaching. So we're going to give coaching a B. Again, Steve Sarkisian, he continues to recruit and develop at an elite level. But the 2025 season was a bit of a, what if and regarding game management. Some of the good we saw. So Steve Sarkisian, he went undefeated in rivalry games. I feel like that's a key as a coach and job security, beating both Oklahoma, who was 20, they beat them 23-6, and Texas A&M 27-17. Both college football playoff teams, might I add.
Mm-hmm.
His ability to keep the team focused through the Arch Manning versus the world media circus was very, very masterful. He obviously has that locker room won over. The critique on our end is going to be, the offense as they went through this strange stagnant periods and big games, especially in losses to Ohio State and Georgia, where the play calling felt, uncharacteristically conservative. So again,
Yeah.
they get a B there.
Yeah, I agree with the B. I know we agreed on a B. I could see a potentially lower grade just for those penalties that we talked about that
Mhm.
kept moving them backwards when they should have been moving forwards. And then of course they did great against their rivals, but against some of the biggest games, Ohio State and Georgia, for them to fall apart the ways that they did, that I could see that being another like ding for that specific grade. But I'm okay with a B. I'm okay with a B there. Let's move on to offense and defense. How they did in those units. So we give them a B plus here. Offense, they had 30.5 points per game. It was very efficient. They were good at. They were both good at passing at times. Arch Manning looked inconsistent. We'll say running game was not as good as it was a couple years ago. It just really lacked that explosive knockout punch that we were used to seeing from a Steve Sarkisian led Longhorn offense. They were ranked 27th nationally in scoring. That's pretty decent. But a lot of times we saw the offensive line was struggling with pressure. Arch Manning was having to deal with just too much pressure in his face. He showed flashes of brilliance, but also showed flashes of just incompetence. So, not what we were expecting from Arch this year. The defense, they were pretty good. 20.3 points per game allowed. This was definitely the backbone of the team. The reason they got 10 wins was a lot of the times because of the defense. They had a top 15 rushing defense, and they were pretty good at forcing turnovers. They finished 5th in the nation in turnover margin. So all of that gets them that B plus.
Yep. Moving on. So we gotta, go through their schedule. We had to sift through and see what their best win and worst loss was. So I'm gonna start with the worst loss. I think it's unarguably the loss they had at Florida. They lost 21-29. This was the game that most likely cost them a playoff spot, right? Florida was an unranked underdog, and the Longhorns, they just turned the ball over at critical moments and then failing to capitalize on a game that was, could have been a could have been a surge late in the fourth quarter to take them over. So again, that key third loss is what made them so controversial and being on the line of getting in or out of the playoffs. Now to counter it, their best win was their last game of the regular season. So they ended on a very good note. They beat at the time, number 7 Texas A&M 27-17. Uh Going into College Station and silencing, a top 10 Aggie team when a high stakes rivalry game was definitely the peak of their season. It proved that, Texas is currently the big brother in the state. So positive note to end the regular season there.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, we talked about it before, but that A&M it kept A&M was supposed to go to the SEC championship game, right? So because Texas won that one, Georgia was able to go. So shout out to Texas for that one. Sounds good. Portal and preparation for the future. We gave them A in this one. So Steve Sarkisian, he's been very aggressive in the portal. We saw a bunch of people leave, and we figured that's because they're clearing up that cap space. And sure enough, they got Cam Coleman and Hollywood Smothers, two of some of the biggest names on the offensive side of the ball, to give Arch Manning some more weapons. So it seems like, yes, they're prepared for the future. We'll give them an A here, but it also seems like this is maybe a last ditch effort, kind of a final trump card, so to speak. And so, if it doesn't work out, then what does 2 years from now look like? Is Steve Sarkisian still there? Are these guys still there? In the near future, for the next year, I think they're set up for an A. In the if it doesn't work out 3 years from now, maybe that's a lower grade. But yeah, that's what we're thinking. So final grade here. What did we give? Final grade, we give a B. I think that's a good final grade, consider all things considered.
Yep. Yep. They found a way to save, what they could from their season towards the end as they started to find a little bit of rhythm.